This candle from yesterday on Thursday looked very, very similar to the candle when Trump announced the Chinese tariff news. Almost exactly the same red candles. And what ended up happening afterward? We ended up bouncing. So is this going to end up also being a good bouncing opportunity? Who knows? Let's see. Remember, I was explaining how the market would end up bouncing, how we would get a gap up, which we did, how we would find a bottom and rally a bit, which we did. So in today's video, I'm going to explain how I knew that was the case. And for everyone, for the couple of people that were commenting how I'm, incorrect, I hope you listened to the video, leaned on the right side of my analysis, and made some money, hopefully. All right, so in today's video, we're going to take a look at the VIX. We're going to take a look at the large tech stocks, the SP500, the NASDAQ, the Russell, the crypto market. And we're going to put everything together to see what the next steps are for the market. All right, without further ado, let's get started with the video. All right, first and foremost, let's go ahead and take a look at the VIX. Okay, the VIX was very far overextended to the upside yesterday, out of the Bollinger Band, trading above $25. When that is the case, you do not lean bearish on the market. I was trying to explain to you guys. I was very vehement. I even titled yesterday's video, Bounce Overnight. Once we bounced overnight, guys, you should have just realized, okay, this is going to be a trending up day. Primarily, one of the main reasons, not only in the strength in the large tech stocks and the stock market in general, but because of the VIX. The VIX dropped, it reclaimed back inside of the Bollinger Band. And the reason why we look at the VIX is because it has an inverse relationship to the market. If the VIX falls, that's obviously very bullish for the market. I was expecting the VIX to drop. Because it dropped, the VIX was down almost 12% today. That led to a big bounce in the overall market. And you cannot fake these results. This VIX weakness was a very, very big precursor and a sign that the market was going to get a relief rally. That's exactly what ended up happening. We bounced almost $15, $20 on the NASDAQ off the lows. Spectacular move. And now we have to look at what the next steps are. Obviously, the VIX is still above $20. So we have major support on the VIX at 22 and then at $20. We're not out of the woodwork yet. We're not automatically, this is not an automatic reason to just be completely bullish on the market. But damn, the fact that this is occurring is a big, big sign that the VIX is going to drop. And if the VIX ends up dropping, that is very, very bullish for the overall market. That's that. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the large tech stocks. All right, this is a chart of Apple. Why do we look at Apple? Apple is the second largest company in the entire world. It looks like it's holding support very well, and the stock is doing very well, strong.
Oh my God! Wow!
Not just holding support, painting a very nice green candle. We are holding 270. We held 266. The entire market, right? The NASDAQ, the S&P was down here, right? Making new lows, lots of weakness. What's Apple doing? What's Apple doing? Apple held 266. The Bollinger Bands are tightening up. This is leading to a big move to the upside on Apple. When Apple is acting like this, you cannot be bearish on the overall market. If the overall market was actually bearish, if the internals of the market was actually bearish, you would see stocks like Apple doing very, very badly. You would see stocks like Apple also making new lows. But the fact that Apple held was a very, very good and clear sign that the market wanted to hold support and bounce. And that's exactly what it ended up doing today. Google. This is a daily time frame of Google. Same concept. Whereas Apple was holding 266, right? Down here, it was holding in around support. Google ended up making brand new highs, fresh highs, tapping up at $300. Warren Buffett entered Google at around 280s. We got news that Warren Buffett entered in the 270s, 280s, right? It has not retested that ever since. We are on a path to the upside on Google. It is very, very difficult to be overall bearish on the market when Warren Buffett enters into a stock at all-time highs. Google is one of the largest companies in the world. He entered at all-time highs on a large tech stock that moves the market. Google is a market mover, showing strength, making new highs. Not the time to be bearish on the market. Rather, it's a good time to start looking for dip buying opportunities. That's exactly what we ended up doing. Google is still holding support, still holding above 290. You cannot argue with this. Still looks very, very good. Had a big monstrous red candle. Reclaimed almost the entire candle. Now, it has clear-cut resistance at 300. Let's see how it responds there. Overall, would I want to be bearish on Google up here? No. The daily time frame of Tesla. Tesla's on like thin ice. It looks like Tesla's on thin ice. Not looking too good. Holding above 380, though. Not a complete, strong candle. Obviously, this is, oh my God, definitely does not look as bullish as Apple. Okay? So that's, it's trying to paint a bit of a hammer candle. We wicked down. We tried to hold. Still holding below 400. I would like to see Tesla break back above 400 to really show some strength, but this is not a completely bullish reversal on Tesla. So now this is a daily time frame of Microsoft. We came back to 470 on Microsoft, held that pretty well. This is definitely not really the time. Now that we're getting close to 470, not really the time to be extremely bearish. Okay, so I was explaining how 470 would be a really, really important level of support. This is where we are currently. So now that we're here, we wicked off of this level of support. The overall market also bounced. It's not as easy to be bearish here on Microsoft because we are also down 15% from the highs on a multi-trillion-dollar company. So just keeping that in mind, Microsoft also doesn't look too great, but it's starting to get to a point close to 470. Very, very important. Below that, then there's 444, which is a very, very major level of support. If we get there, while the market is basically stabilizing, that's a really good sign for Microsoft. Down here at this 450, 445 level, makes it much easier to go long. Amazon, not as bad as the others. Pointed a bit of a bullish reversal candle as well. We have resistance at 222. Clearly, we wicked off of this level of resistance. We need to see if it can finally break above it. But so far, Amazon is getting a lot of love, and it's doing very well because the IWM and the Russell 2000 is also doing well. We're going to look at the IWM, but when the Russell 2000 does well, it generally helps Amazon because the IWM are economically sensitive stocks. When the economically sensitive stocks do well, that means that there is money that the average person can spend. So when there's money for the average person to spend, Amazon is one of those consumer companies that the average person spends money on. People spend money on Amazon when they have extra money. So keep that in mind. That's what's currently going on with Amazon here. Amazon is doing very well. A lot of it is primarily also in part by the Russell 2000 doing very well today. So we have that resistance at 222. Above that, there's nothing until 230. And we held 215 today. So this is a really good sign. It would be really nice if Amazon gets its act together and bounces above 230. That would be really, really spectacular. This is a daily time frame of Meta. What is Meta doing? What is Mr. Facebook Zuckerberg doing? What is this stock doing? Holding 580. It's trying to hold support. Multiple trend lines, lots of uptrend, downtrend, support, resistance, lots of things converging here at this 580. Excuse me. Bought the dip and I had a bunch of food, so I'm not sure when this video is going to come out, but hey. Anyway, 580 is holding a support. 580 holding a support. This is trying to bottom out. What we're looking at right now is we're looking at all these large tech stocks as a whole to see, are they majority showing weakness or are they majority trying to bottom out and show some strength? Meta is one of those names that are showing some support, trying to show some strength, okay? Netflix trading outside of the lower level of the Bollinger Band here, right? Obviously, this is not a strong move on Netflix, right? But pragmatically speaking, is this a time to start going short on Netflix? No, because when Netflix is this far outside of the lower level of the Bollinger Band, what does price tend to want to do? It tends to want to bounce and revert back into the Bollinger Bands. All right, so that's currently what's going on Netflix. Yes, it's showing weakness, but this is overextended to the downside weakness. That, in actuality, is better for a potential bounce. So keep that in mind, okay? Of course, now let's go ahead and take a look at the chip stocks. All right, so NVIDIA got a big hold. It held above 175. It held above 170. It tried to close above 180. Is this an automatic time to be extremely bullish on NVIDIA? It's doing its best. All right, like pragmatically speaking, it is doing its best. There are many, many companies way too heavily dependent on NVIDIA for NVIDIA to collapse. So this is a very, very interesting spot for NVIDIA right now. And, I want to take a look at AMD as well. So AMD is also very far overextended to the downside, right? Pointing and painting a hammer candle outside of the lower level of the Bollinger Band, right? So when something is this far outside of the band, number one, pointing with a hammer candle, which is a bullish reversal candle. Those are two reasons to basically expect and to wait for a good bouncing opportunity. So we also came back where we ended up gapping up, right? This is the third thing. We gapped up, right? And the low of this gap up was 203. Okay. Where did we end up closing above? We ended up closing above this gap up point. Okay. I can't draw a straight line, but right here, right? We ended up closing above that 203 level. We are holding this level. Okay. So once again, similar to Netflix, right? What we were just looking at with Netflix, when something is this far overextended to the downside, that doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be continued weakness. Instead, it makes sense to look for a good opportunity for a long. Keep that in mind, all right? All right, and now this is a daily time frame of the S&P 500. All right, this is the S&P 500 futures. We opened outside of the lower level of the Bollinger Band. That is extremely good for a reversal. That's exactly what ended up happening today. There were so many reasons to be bullish today, and it worked out perfectly. It's beautiful, beautiful. Held 6,600, held above 6,630, and it's just really tough. It was really, really tough to be very bearish today. There might be a bit of a reversal. There might be a bit of a retest of 6,600. There's no guarantee that we're just going to continue to make a V-shaped recovery now, okay? But this is definitely something. There should generally be another move to the upside. When we look at the NASDAQ as well, we held the 24,000 level almost to the T. We were opening outside of the lower level of the Bollinger Band and bounced, all right? So this is clear cut, not a monstrous close. Obviously, we pulled back into the end of the day, but this was a perfect opportunity to go long, and that's exactly what we ended up doing, right? And then last but not least, when we take a look at the IWM, the biggest winner today, the IWM was up almost 3%. When the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ were up basically a 1%, 1.5%, the IWM was up almost 3%. So this is one of the reasons why Amazon also did very well. All right. The IWM held 230. It broke above and held 235. This is not a completely bearish sign, right? So we have resistance at 238. If we break above 238 and close, the IWM can easily retest the 20 exponential moving average and retest the 242 level. This is very, very bullish. The fact that the IWM is bullish is good for the S&P 500. And if the S&P 500 does well, that's going to help lift the NASDAQ up. So while the IWM is doing well, it gives space for Microsoft, Tesla, AMD, NVDA, for those loser stocks to bottom themselves out and also bounce, okay? So it's a really, really good sign that the IWM is bouncing straight away. Because if the IWM was not bouncing like this, the market would have collapsed. Because a lot of these large tech stocks were not doing that amazingly. But because the IWM bounced so aggressively, the money flew into the S&P 500. It kept the market up, and strength was there. Okay, so it's a very, very, very bullish sign that the IWM is doing well and it's holding above 234. Keep that in mind. Really spectacular stuff that we saw today out of the market in general. And of course, now to wrap up the video, what are we seeing on the crypto markets? Bitcoin is trying to hold above 86. It's holding these major levels of support. It's trying its best. What is it doing? It's painting a hammer candle at these levels of support. What's Ethereum doing? It's trying to hold above 2,800. Hammer candle at a very major level of support here. What's Solana doing? Trying to hold above 130 with a hammer candle. Does not want to make brand new fresh lows the way that Ethereum and Bitcoin did. The entire market is trying to bottom itself out. There's a lot of bearish pressure in the market. But today's strength, Friday's strength, guys, was not something to play around with. The fact that we rallied like that, everything was pointed to new lows. When you look at the S&P 500, right? Everything was pointed to new lows. When you had a big red candle like that and about face, how many people were going to be bullish in today? How many people would be bullish? The vast majority of people would be extremely bearish when something like this occurs. All right? So the fact that this occurred and we got a bounce, that goes to show the internal market dynamics. And one other thing, this candle from yesterday on Thursday looked very, very similar to the candle when Trump announced the Chinese tariff news. Almost exactly the same red candles. And what ended up happening afterward? We ended up bouncing. So is this going to end up also being a good bouncing opportunity? Who knows? Let's see. But regardless, we're playing the market one at a time, one day at a time. We're taking in all of the different information of what the market is giving us. And so far, we're doing things phenomenally. This morning, we took multiple trades. Did very, very well, thankfully. So I hope you guys are enjoying these videos. The best I could do is just give you guys my analysis. So far, the past couple of weeks that we've been doing this, newly again, actively, how wrong have I been? Right? Not very wrong. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please make sure to like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already. And I will see you guys bright and early Monday morning. And I will see you guys in the Discord server over the weekend. Love you guys. Have a good one.